Hey, folks, welcome back to the Pulse. My name is Matt. This is Crypto Heartbeat and a special TEXIT edition. Today, it's the TNM versus the Texas GOP, folks. You know what is great about this? It's because, you know what? It's only making our voices louder. That's what I see. And, folks, I'm just super excited about what is happening. 139,000 plus uh, petitions were signed and delivered to the Texas GOP. And you know what's amazing is I always feel like the establishment people, they tend to they either overplay their hand or they just assume that they have some special characteristics that the normal people don't have. And these things end up backfiring, folks, especially in this political climate. This isn't 6 years ago. This is today. You know what's going on in this world? People have had enough, and anything that they can find to push back on these idiots, they'll find. And I will tell you right now, the wind is at our backs. And I am super excited about today's stream. But folks, I'm going to play something for you. If you have not heard this speech from Daniel Miller, you've got to hear it. I'm going to put this up here. That guy right there, that is Matt Rinaldi. That's the guy who said something really nasty about you and me. And I'm going to play that next after you hear this. But this is what Daniel Miller had to say when it came to whether or not this referendum ought to be on the ballot. This is when he delivered the 139,000 petition signatures to this committee. And so I want you to hear from the horse's mouth.
So obviously, I'm for it. But let me just say this. 8 years ago, I was in this very room sitting back there when I watched the Resolutions Committee actually place this question before the body of the SREC to be a ballot proposition. And the argument then was very simple. Let the Republican voters speak. I've heard all weekend that we are a party that respects the grassroots, to let them speak. But then I hear Mr. Garcia stand up and essentially say that the organization that pushed this petition forward are liars. Well, here's my answer to that. I'm your huckleberry. If you want to see where the people of Texas stand on this issue, then you put it to a vote. And if it is, as the detractors say, that no one believes in it, that it's fringe, that it's tiny, so what? You've killed this discussion in the SREC and in the Republican Party for the next generation. But we have to ultimately show that we respect Article 1, Section 2 of the Texas Constitution when it says that all political power is inherent in the people. We believe that the party across the street are the cancel culture folks who don't like the results of elections, and so they do the things necessary to kind of make their results happen, right? We believe that they're the people who don't really want the people to speak, but they give it lip service. But here we are today. Republican voters have a right to be heard on this issue. And you know what? If they say no, so be it. Why do we ask these things in the first place? Why do we have these ballot propositions? If we go in and say we know all the answers, it's nothing more than a marketing ploy. But here's what we do know. If we want to drive passionate, conservative Republican voters to the primaries, you will ask them this one question. And I quote my good friend, Dr. Matt Quartra, the world's foremost expert on independence referendums around the world. When you put questions like this on the ballot, you increase voter turnout exponentially. The average voter turnout worldwide for questions like this is 85%. So I come here not just as the leader of the organization who wrote you all an open letter and led this petition campaign with an army of thousands of volunteers, but I come here as someone who has voted Republican his entire life. I've been a candidate under the Republican banner twice, and I am imploring you, let the people vote.
All right, you need to see this one now. This is unbelievable. This is what Matt Rinaldi has to say about you and me, those who have signed the petition. So check this out. It So this was on a show he called into, and this was a show, and a great case was made here. But take a look at this.
Texas Nationalist Movement says that nothing drives people to the polls like this particular issue. And they cited stats from when this type of discussion has happened all over the world. What about that case that the enemy of the Dade Phelons of the world is an engaged electorate showing up to the polls and wanting to exact some revenge for these left-wing Republicans' betrayals? What about that rationale that, hey, the TEXIT movement would drive a lot of folks to the polls?
Yeah, no doubt it will. It's just the wrong ones.
Okay, you hear what he said. I think this is very important. He said the wrong ones. So which voters are the right ones and which ones are the wrong ones? See, this is the problem right here. And these are the words that are going to come back to bite him, because you cannot speak this way and get away with it, right? Daniel Miller, we are so fortunate to have Daniel and his ability to communicate, because I'm going to tell you what, I'm offended. I'm offended. I think about being a Texas voter, and, 139,000 votes is a lot of votes. But let me share with you something. Matt Rinaldi, he lost his last election. Let me tell you about his last election. Matt Rinaldi, the guy who's the head of the Texas GOP, he was in District 115, which was out of Dallas. Okay, this is Dallas County. And he lost to a Democrat in 2018. Okay, he's back again, right? He's leading the Texas GOP. But let me just give you some perspective. He received 24,512 votes when he lost. He lost the total votes in his district, 115, was 56,726. That's how many people in all of Dallas County voted. There's more than twice that many, almost 3 times that many people who want to see a question asked that's non-binding, this referendum. And here's the thing that's interesting to me. I am shocked that somebody like that has the cojones to offend the people of Texas. Because here's what I find is interesting. I come from a family of very conservative people. My wife's side of the family are longtime Texans, and not everyone's a big TEXIT supporter in my family. But I will say this. Hey, do you think that the people of Texas ought to have the right to say how they feel? Completely 100% of people would say absolutely, if it is the will of the people. But that's the problem. These are people that are standing in the way. And then they offend us by saying that we're not the right type. It's like the deplorables comment from Hillary Clinton. And you know what's great about that? Bring it on. Because we're going to talk to the literal horse's mouth here, folks, on the Pulse today. And I want to dig into this because I'm pissed off. And I'm a pretty friendly guy. But folks, let's talk to the Huckleberry himself, Daniel Miller, president of the TNM. What's up, Daniel?
Well, you said horse's mouth. Are you sure you got the right end of the horse?
That's right. You might be the horse's rear, but you know what? Today, I just respect you so much, Daniel, for standing up for the people of Texas. Thank you so much.
Well, we got to fight.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I don't know how many of the viewers out there got to see the podcast that dropped on Friday, but it's exactly what I said there, which is, some people out there may look at Rinaldi and say, well, on balance, he's a good guy or whatever. But here's the bottom line. We're having to fight the establishment. And in this instance, it's just another establishment.
Yeah.
Right. And two of my rules, Matt, are you don't lie to me and you don't lie about me. And since his letter dropped and everything that happened before and everything that's happened since, he has been on a campaign to essentially lie about his position, lie about TEXIT supporters, and we just don't stand up for that kind of nonsense.
Yeah, well, I'm going to tell you something. I'm upset. It's one thing because I feel like, and it helped me with this. I try to think about the political logic here, and I understand that the popularity within the political class is one that doesn't want to rock the boat. I get it. But here's the thing that strikes me. wouldn't it make sense if you understand how much this would impact the primaries? I mean, this could literally change the face of Texas politics by
Sure.
getting people out to vote. Where 85% you quoted would come out into the primaries potentially for this type of question that's non-binding.
Yeah.
Is it possible? Is it possible that he can make it look like he's putting up as much of a fight and go, "Oh well, you guys win," knowing that? Because in my opinion, this is the greatest thing that would ever happen to the Republicans in Texas. They may not believe that the voters will vote, but I think they're actually scared that because of the nature of the political climate in the US and across the world, that it would be through with flying colors. I think there's real fear there.
Look, that's exactly why, and it's something that we've said for a very long time. The reason the political establishment is so averse to putting this question to the people of Texas is because they've seen the same polling that we've seen. They know
Yeah.
if it goes on a ballot, it wins, and it wins by at this point a growing landslide. I mean, look at the things that have happened since we filed the petition, since we went and dropped it off. I mean, you've got the Biden Department of Justice suing the state of Texas, trying to prevent us from securing our own border. You've had a surge that is mounting up against the border, that has come across the border, that is more than double the number of people that signed the petition. You had news that broke that essentially said that illegal immigration, now the rate is actually higher than the birth rate. So you're looking at whether it's more wars, whether it's federal debt. I mean, across every single solitary measure, it's gotten bad. So this thought that somehow, as Rinaldi said, that it'll bring out the wrong ones, tells me that he's not particularly confident in his position, not nearly as confident as we are about where the people of Texas stand on this particular issue.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, he's going to have a rude awakening. Help us understand the process now, because my understanding is he said, "Well, you can't use digital signatures.
Yeah.
You brought it in too late." All these excuses. Where can we take this, and what's the plan?
Well, it's litigation, right? And I know everyone has been hearing that since the letter dropped, but everyone has to remember, technically this response was sent as an open letter, which the business day would have been the 28th. So you had the 28th and 29th, where we had to process basically everything that was in that letter, and then we're right into the New Year's holiday. And so we all worked. I worked with the attorneys all throughout the holiday, and we've been working ever since. But essentially, where it goes here is litigation, and I can't get into the details of it. We should. I will tell you that it should have been filed last week. However, in the process of unpacking the Texas election code, and specifically about what the duties and responsibilities are of the party chairman, a lot of things came out in this process that have effectively delayed it, because we're going to get a shot at this, right? And so when we go to the court with our filings, plural, we've got to hit it with everything we've got. We can't hold out because the clock is up against us. Now, for those people who are talking about the clock running out and time being short, it is short. But I would draw your attention to the fact that over the weekend, you had an electronic filing from Eric Opiela, who is an attorney in another case related to one of the judicial races. And they went straight to the Texas Supreme Court, and the Texas Supreme Court picked it up on an emergency basis already, demanding a response. And oddly enough, it was over petition signatures for a judicial race. So, fear not. We know that time is short, but we are prepped and ready to rock and roll. I've been on the phone with the attorneys already today. So, just be patient.
All right. When you say the time is short, what does that mean?
Well, you've got statutory limits, right? So, you've got this statute that here in Texas that essentially says that you can't file an election challenge, AKA challenge someone on the ballot or off the ballot, whatever it is. The cutoff for that is 50 days before the primary. So that's going to put it, say, January 15th, 16th, depending on, how you count the holiday. But more than that, we also are running up against this federal law. Imagine that that dictates when ballots have to be mailed out to members of the military. So, they've got to get these things settled. They've got to get them printed. So we understand that the clock is ticking on this. But look, there are other challenges in play. The one I just mentioned a moment ago, there's a residency challenge up there in SD 30. Where you've got 4 candidates. You've got this establishment candidate who lied about his residency, and the 3 others are piling on him. So it's in court. It's in play right now. So there's a lot of these things that are happening right now. So I tell people, just hold on to your shirt. It's better. You got on things like this, you got to measure twice and cut once. But we are very cognizant of the deadlines that we're up against, and we're going to meet them. So it's not going to be a problem.
So let me ask you this, obviously, if this goes through and we win, right? And let's say the Texas Supreme Court says, yep, you're on the ballot.
Yep.
That does not look good for Matt and the GOP, really. I mean, I don't think it looks good now. Is there a way? I mean, could he literally drop this, or could he just say, okay, fine? I mean, is that a possibility? It's unlikely, I would assume.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing about it. Look, we've given Rinaldi and the Republican Party of Texas, including the SREC, we've given them multiple opportunities on this. We've been dealers in good faith, in the sense that before the SREC meeting where you played that speech a moment ago, we went and sat down. Kara and Nate and I went and sat down in Rinaldi's office the day before, and had a meeting with him to let him know we would be bringing the petitions to kind of lay it out for him what was going to happen. We're trying to be honest dealers here.
Yeah.
Not a problem at all. We go to the SREC meeting. We give them an opportunity to place it on the ballot. You had shenanigans from the resolutions committee, particularly from the resolutions committee chair and Rolando Garcia. It went, regardless of their attempts to squelch the voice and railroad us, we were able to get a debate on it on the floor. We had this, they had an opportunity to put it on the ballot, sans petition, and they wanted to call our bluff. Bad move on their part, but okay. We were planning on delivering the petitions regardless because we don't trust them. So we go the 11th, we drop the petitions off, video, sign off on the sheet, everything else, and then the Republican Party of Texas waits, and they drag their feet when they don't have as much time as they were given, right? So, we get this notification, not directly to us, but actually we wind up seeing Rinaldi's rejection letter in a tweet, which was, again, not proper notice. And, and so the battle starts. We gave them, even after that, we gave them 24 hours. It was in my response letter. Look, we're going to give you 24 hours to reconsider this. Here's why your rationale is wrong. We're giving you 24 hours, and they rejected it. So we've given them every opportunity, and all that Rinaldi has done since is double down on his position. Even when, if you watch the entirety of that Chris Salcedo interview, he winds up basically just conceding our point on the date that he said, he effectively admitted that he lied about it, and then, you get into this issue about the electronic signatures, and the law is very clear, but just to show you how he's doubling down, he goes on Twitter yesterday and he posts a story about a court case, and he claims that the court's decision upheld the state's a requirement under law to require wet signatures on voter registration and petitions. Well, that in and of itself was a lie. That case was specifically about a law that was passed related to voter registration and had absolutely nothing to do with petitions. Now, he knows that. I mean, I can't fathom any way that he is that ignorant of the situation. I mean, you even just look at the article to the link that he posted and read it, and it's very clear it's about voter registration. So, we've transitioned from a guy who's making an honest mistake because he's up against some political forces out there to a guy who is effectively going out there on a tirade and lying.
Yeah.
He lied to Salcedo about the date because he goes to quote to quote Salcedo and says, the deadline, the statute says that it has to be filed the day before. It doesn't say the day before. That's not what it says. It says before the date of the filing deadline. The date of the filing deadline is month, day, year, and time by statute, right? So he goes and he continues to lie. And I didn't want to think this of the guy. You know, this is not how I perceive him at all. I remember his time in the Texas legislature, but I don't know who's in his ear. I don't know who is what his motivations are. And frankly, Matt, I don't care. It is irrelevant to me what your motivations are, because when you screw over our people and you intentionally violate the law and you intentionally violate Article 1, Section 2 of the Texas Constitution, I don't care what your motivations are. You're now wearing the other team's jersey, and we're going to go after you with everything we got.
Fantastic. Well, and the thing, I would think that this is kind of political science 101, is that if you want something to go away, you don't shine a light on it. And right now, what I see is happening is they're pushing back. He's poking the bear here. And I think I know he's underestimating the TNM. But it seems strange to me because, if anything, this only helps the TNM in the case for Texas independence, because he's giving it promotion. And of course, this opportunity, I see it as a very unique opportunity to show and expose what Matt is doing. And I mentioned at the beginning, right before you came in, my family, very conservative people, quiet, hardworking people. And, they would 100% agree that you could ask any question of Texas voters. Now, they might say, hey, I don't know that it's as popular as you think it is, Matt, but they wouldn't say, oh, you should never ask them. No, if you get the necessary signatures and you want to ask any question, I mean, look at California. I know we're not a referendum state, but the kind of questions they ask. And will you explain to people that this is not binding, right? This is asking people, and obviously what it leads to, I think, is really significant, but it's evidence of fear. But I think it ultimately backfires because it only shines a much, much stronger light on this topic.
Well, I mean, look, we talk about this particular thing, and we talk about advisory referendums ultimately leading to what will be the final statewide vote. These things advance the conversation in major ways. This in particular helps advance this as a policy issue moving into the next legislative session, and maybe even before, depending on what sort of percentage it comes back with, and sort of how it captures the public consciousness, and frankly, how it drives additional voter turnout. But that's ultimately, I think, the problem that we're running into, or really the problem that they have with it. If you go listen to Rinaldi's remarks in that interview, he specifically states that his rationale, now whether it's his rationale or that rationale is being pushed and he just happens to be the mouthpiece, is unknown. I mean, the lawsuits will figure that out. But here's the rationale. He said that it would be like a bomb going off in the primaries, that they want to focus on three things: Paxton's impeachment, illegal immigration, and school vouchers. That's what they want to focus on. So he betrayed his motivations for trying to, I mean, this is why the rationale is so stupid, right? The filing deadline issue, which is dead on arrival, or this electronic signature thing, which is also dead on arrival, right? So that's why his rationale seems so stupid to us, because it's not really about those things. It's about keeping it off the ballot so they can make it about what they want to make it about. But I'm here to tell you, I don't countenance gatekeepers.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's essentially what they're doing. They're essentially saying that, look, you guys out there that want to answer this question, whether it's yes or no, are completely irrelevant to what we want this election to be about. And I'm here to say we followed the law to the letter. We met and exceeded the standards required by law. And so consequently, just because they want to make it about the things they want to make it about is no excuse whatsoever for denying the people their voice. Those people signed that petition in the belief that the law would be followed.
That's right.
And look, I'll be damned if I'm going to sit by and twiddle my thumbs and just kind of shrug my shoulders and go, "Oh, I'm sorry. I understand that your injustice was for a greater good. So you know what? I'll just sit down and shut up and we'll just deal with this later." That's not what's going to happen. That was never going to happen, and they understood that. It's not like we didn't tell them that, Matt.
Yeah. Yep. Wow. Well, it's interesting. I anticipate at some point shaking Matt's hand and telling him thank you, because what's amazing about this pushback, I just see it as a complete backfire for him. Because if you think about it, let's say they said, okay, fine, you guys are fringe. Go ahead and have your question on the ballot. It would put the onus completely back on the TNM to have to do the promotion around getting people out there to he's making this so much of a bigger issue. It's going to go into litigation. It's going to be international news. And so I'm actually, I was kind of, not that I want it to come down to this last hour, but the fact that we're going to get all of this press around the litigation and such. But let me ask you this. How important is money as it relates to fighting this in the, in the judiciary here? How much is it important that you guys are getting the donations you need? I know it's been a challenge in the past.
Yeah, I mean, look, the organization has to operate. We've got outreach to do. The PAC has to accept contributions to go out there and promote candidates and promote the issues and things of that nature. Litigation is always an off budget thing for us because that's not our primary purpose. Our primary purpose is not to go sue people. I mean, this will be the third lawsuit in our entire history that we've been involved in, the third, and that's it. Most notably, the first one was against Facebook and Meta, which we did that because they were censoring Texans, particularly those that were posting links to Texan information. And we had to go raise for that. And that thing is still ongoing. Those federal suits are like, they take forever. We came alongside and supported one of our supporters who sued State Representative Jeff Leach for being so too generous with the word traitor in talking about people and saying that they're guilty of treason, right? We did it to prove a point. And while we ultimately did not prevail in that one, it has dissuaded, I think, a good chunk of people, maybe made them reevaluate their wording a little bit better when dealing with TEXIT supporters. But here we are on this one, which is perhaps, I think, ultimately even bigger than the Facebook Meta case.
Oh, yeah.
And so, this is expensive. I mean, you have to think about, as this unfolded over the holidays, we're having to get these flotilla of attorneys to start drafting, to begin to develop strategy, to take specifically what was in the rejection letter and contend with that, right? I mean, we were able to do some groundwork ahead of time in anticipation that it might happen, but all of that is just sort of hypotheticals until these things actually happen in the context. So between lawyers and legal assistance and filing fees, we're going to need an all hands on deck approach, which is why we have that defendtexit.com site that specifically goes, the money doesn't even go to us. It goes into an escrow account with the attorney. But that's what I would encourage people to go donate to, because that well is going to run dry at some point. But here's what I do know. I think our people are so furious about this, particularly because they've been treated unjustly, that by the time it's all over with, if the RPT persists in their position, that they will probably run out of money before we do.
Okay. Well, I will say I'm gonna throw this banner up here, folks. Defendtexit.com. Is that the right one?
You nailed it.
All right. So here's the thing. You've been doing this forever, right? 1996, 2005 officially with the TNM. You've dedicated your life to this.
Yeah.
I've come back. I've come here recently, but I'm going to tell you this. I've never felt like we were closer than today. And what has happened and really transpired over the last 6-8 months is unbelievable to me. And the community that has been in crypto and the folks that are around here have really stepped up. Some amazing people that I know personally, they deeply care about this. And I think about, what's happening in the world. And I think about, common sense is completely, off the table. No one's thinking sensibly. And I look at what this represents, and it's such a pivotal point in like not only Texas history, but it feels like Western civilization in a way, is that this is a significant event. And we're at this point where dollars, in my opinion, could make the difference.
Mm.
And having the right people and being able to do this. And, I feel like the TNM has done incredible things on a shoestring budget. And this is serious stuff. And I know that there are people out there who are supporters, whether they're from the crypto world or from, TexIT, originals. This is really the time, in my opinion. I mean, you could make the difference for this. Is there any sense of how much you need? Is there any goal or anything related to this defense fund?
Well, this is what we're trying to figure out right now. I mean, you got to remember we were in a rush, but I mean, initially, the first batch of attorneys asked for $100,000 retainer, but that was also under a different strategy. So right now, we're not entirely sure. It depends on how things kind of break with these first filings. But I'm going to tell you, everyone out there is anticipating a single lawsuit, but because of what has been uncovered under this, there's going to be more than one legal action associated with this, and so we have to gird up.
Yeah.
Here's what I do know. I know that cash on hand for the Republican Party of Texas was about $500,000 when I sat in on that SREC meeting. I know that they've had to lay off staff because they're having a hard time making rent. We tried to avoid this because we didn't want to drive them into bankruptcy. But the fact of the matter is that we're going to stand up for whatever. If the folks out here contribute to the fund, that's great. We're appreciative. But if I've got to go make a flight to Beijing and sell my kidney on the black market to get this done just to prove a point, that's going to happen. Because I'm not going to roll over and let these guys do what they've done. I'm just not going to. And some people may say, well, that doesn't sound very, strategic. No, it's 100%, because there is a strategy to a line in the sand, a dividing moment, a binary choice, a fork in the road, whatever you want to call it. And the option here is to roll over and at that point, this kind of behavior becomes acceptable. And I'm not willing to let the political establishment abuse our people. I'm not willing to do it. Yep. And if we don't fight for one another, then what is the entire purpose? Why are we even here? Right? These guys are back on their heels. You can see it from their weak arguments. We were perfectly fine to let the Republican Party, engage in their circular firing squad until their little internal civil war settled out. But now they've drug us into it by violating the law. So look, we're in it to win it. We're in it for the long haul. I think about the progress that we have made, as you said, on a shoestring. We've learned how to squeeze the crap out of a buffalo nickel. Right. But we're in a fight right here, and it's not just for us. It's not just for the TNM. And honestly, it's not just for the 139,456 people that signed the petition. It's for all of us. If they squelch and suppress our voice now by ignoring or breaking the law and we let it ride, then, what does that say about where we are as Texas? We fight this thing because we must, because it is the right thing to do. It's either going to be our San Jacinto or our Alamo, but it's definitely not going to be an exodus out of Texas as a surrender, right? That's never going to happen. This will be our Alamo or this will be our San Jacinto. It will be one or the other.
Wow. Well, I can't help but think, from my perspective, I know how important the nations are when it comes to, this is a cause and a calling that, I think in a way supersedes man's will. And, I think when you get close to it, you recognize it. You're like, you know what? God cares about the nations. And I look at the implications of an independent Texas, and I look at the people of Texas, and I think about people across the world and especially across the United States who they feel just like this 139,456 petition signers. They do not feel like their voices are heard. They feel like this is literally everything's upside down and there's like a evil cabal has taken over it. And I would say if you're somebody that is out there who has the resources, the gift of those resources, I really encourage you to reach out. It's one thing to give online, but I know that there are some people that have some significant capability, Daniel. And to me, I think about investment. I've done fundraising work and investment work all my life. And I find that people invest in people. They don't invest in businesses or organizations. You got to have, a good business model. But Daniel, your passion and your commitment is it doesn't get any better and it doesn't get any more passionate. It doesn't get any more intelligent. And folks, I'll tell you what, this is a moment that we have to seize. And I believe that there are people, there may be just a handful, there may be one who literally feels called to do this. If someone did feel that way, Daniel, and was going to make a significant six-figure gift, they wanted to come in, I want to be a part of this, I want to make the difference, how would they get in touch with you? Because that's not something you generally throw on the credit card, if you will.
Right. I would just encourage people to go to TNM.me and there contact us and we'll put you in touch with the person that can make that happen and facilitate that. I'm just mad and as you said that, all I could think about was just how grateful I am to everyone who sees the vision, who understands not just kind of what's on the other side of the hill, right? Or that's actually a lot closer in our windshield than it's ever been. But for those that are stuck into this thing, that are saying, look, I'll shoulder some of the burden. I can't tell you since this broke down how many phone calls and emails and messages I've gotten from TEXIT supporters, ones that have been super quiet that said, what can I do to help? How can, what's next? What can I do to help? Whether it's with the lawsuit or, whether they can help out with other aspects of what we're doing as an organization, because everyone has to understand this lawsuit is kind of the thing, right? It's the thing that's on everybody's mind right now, but we've got an election coming up. And, however this shakes down with TEXIT on the ballot or not on the ballot, we still have voters we have to reach. We still have Texas First pledge signers that are going to be on the ballot that need every bit of help that people can give, whether it's volunteers for block walking or phone banking. We've got resolutions in play in various counties in Texas in support of a TEXIT resolution. We've got, if people are furious and upset with the Republican Party of Texas, they got a convention coming up. Here's your opportunity to gut the entire leadership of that party and take it over. And look, if they keep pushing us, maybe that's what we do. Maybe we just go take it over and we'll change the name to the Texas National Party.
That's right.
At
That's
TexasNationalParty.org. All right. I mean, we can, we've got things that we've got to get done as an organization. This is one piece of it, and it's a major piece. And it's at this point, it's the one that everyone's focused on. But we don't stop until we get and win a binding referendum on Texas becoming a self-governing independent nation. That is the goal. That is where we're headed. And so, I would just encourage people if they wanted to donate to the legal defense fund, or if they're an attorney and they want to reach out and help, we can use all that help we can get. But other than that, go to TNM.me, volunteer, become a member, spread the word. I mean, there's all kinds of things where we need help. And I'm just so appreciative for the people that have reached out and said, this thing with the RPT and Rinaldi is the straw that broke the camel's back. Yep. I've been sitting on the sidelines and now I'm ready to get in the game and fight.
Well, let me ask you this. Would you accept crypto?
Yeah, we do. If you go to the donation link on the TNM's website, there are crypto instructions there.
Okay, so folks, that's huge for folks that are out there. I implore you to help make this is such an opportunity, in my opinion. And it's great is I think a lot of people, they're like, I don't even know what to do, Daniel. Like, I mean, I feel like, my vote doesn't count. I feel like I don't have the strength myself to help. Here's the thing I recognize in you and what the TNM's doing. I think many people have underestimated the capabilities of the TNM and you. This is your resolve, all of these things, but you know what to do. And that's the thing I've recognized since the very beginning, folks. You don't have to, you just need to come alongside what they're doing, whether that's, taking over the Republican Party at the convention, whatever it may be. But we've got to do something. And this is, I think, very well spelled out. And I respect the fact that this is not some fringe, group of people who are calling to, gather their arms. I mean, you have been doing this by the book since the beginning. And I highly respect that. And it's honestly, it's the reason that I support it, is because I feel like you're doing the right thing. It's authentic, it's real, it's by the book. And we just need folks to come out of the woodwork, because what's going to happen is this will hit a tipping point and people are like, yeah, I supported it all along. And what's funny about that is it doesn't take much for this thing to tip over completely. Any sense of what that is, what it takes? Because there's going to be a point in which, a guy like Elon Musk is going to, tweet about it and be like, well, this is the only option we've got, or whatever. Something is going to tip this thing over. And it may just be the referendum on the Republican primary.
Sure. It's interesting because, there are two things that have been sort of a core for strategic planning for the organization for a very long time. Diffusion of innovation theory, right? And tipping point theory. And those numbers vary, and I'm not going to bore everyone with the wonkushness of that sort of thing. But look, we're well past those numbers where we're looking at massive adoption of this viewpoint. And look, we've already seen it. The polling numbers have borne that out. Where I think people are is sort of at that point we were at the very beginning of the TNM, right? That I don't know that is ever going to change until this goes on a statewide ballot, right? Yeah. And that is, people think they're alone. Right. It's that atomization. You and I've talked about this before. I talk about it in the book. That atomization is a real phenomena. And the people in Texas need to understand, particularly TEXIT supporters need to understand, you are not alone. Yeah. There are millions of people here in Texas that are on the same page with you. They may not understand why, they may not understand how, they may not understand, what they need to do. They may have never heard of the TNM. They may not even know what the term TEXIT means, but they are ready for Texas to become a self-governing independent nation. And so it's incumbent upon us, and it's been a key part of our strategy since day one, is to engage with people in a highly visible and public way, so that people know that they are not alone, to connect them with the larger movement, because all political power is inherent in the people. If you want to exercise political power, you must have the people. But to your point about what is that tipping point moment, I think those catalyzing moments or tipping point moments are largely mythological. I think from a superficial viewpoint, it seems like there's this triggering thing that spikes it. But I go back to the words of Sergei Popovich, who led the opposition in Serbia that toppled Milosevic, something we talked about before. And he talked about how the news played it out that, in a 48-hour period, Milosevic, the dictator, was toppled by this opposition. And he's like, what they didn't tell you was the 10 years and 5 separate campaigns that led up to that moment, So don't think that there is some magic bullet out there, or there's going to be just some switch flipped, because when those switches flip, if you haven't put in all the work ahead of time, you will not be in a position to capitalize on it. So you've got to be in it for the long haul. You got to slog. You got to do the hard things. You got to, give your blood, sweat, toil, and tears in anticipation of when your moment comes. And our moment is up on us.
Yeah, that is so true. And Hotcake says every moment needs a champion. Daniel, thank you so much for not only writing the book on TEXIT, but leading the charge. And I know that you're somebody that is going to go fishing after this actually happens. And I appreciate all you do. It gives me hope that we could we could really stand up and make a difference, not only here in Texas, but in the United States and across the world. And so I thank you for all of your work that you've done for your lifetime in this. And I wish you well, and I continue to support in any way I can. And I just appreciate you coming on today.
Well, thanks for the invitation, Matt. This was kind of a surprise for me. I'm very happy to do it.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much. Well, we'll continue to rattle the folks in crypto to come alongside, because this is our fates are intertwined. Daniel, thank you so much.
Thank you, Matt.
All right. Folks, Daniel Miller, the president of the TNM. Folks, I just want to make one last appeal to you. You know what? Your life can change in a moment. I got a phone call that my daughter was in a car accident, and I'm so thankful that she's okay. But I think about the things that can be literally life-changing. And when we think about this idea, I think we've been lulled to sleep in thinking that we don't have core inalienable rights, meaning that so many people in this world, the younger they are, I think the more they think this, is they think that their rights come from the state. And so I just wanted to say to you, your rights don't come from the state, they come from a creator. And when I look at this and I think about how God cares about the nations, and I think about why am I involved in all of this, is that there's a sense of destiny, I think, in all of us. They're going, you know what? There has to be, good has to win ultimately. And I think we know that, that's knit into our psyche, right? It's who we are, but also the good of people too, right? When my daughter got in that car accident, there were like 2 or 3 guys. They were kind of dads, and they saw this happen, and they stayed with my daughter until EMTs got there and stuff, making sure she was okay. I was well across town. And I saw the best in people when there was a challenge. And I've seen that time and time and time again. And I just, I look at this opportunity. I look at what's going on. The TNM has come so far, and so many people have put in so much effort and work. And I feel like, it feels like kind of the silent majority back in kind of Reagan's era. There's people that are hardworking people, and they don't lift up their heads to realize what's going on. They know that things are getting difficult. It's all around us. And to think that this is a lever that we can pull, that this is actually an appropriate thing we can do. And I think it comes down to this, and it is this way for me. We've been convinced that we don't have the power. We've been convinced that we are not the sovereigns. We have essentially become subject to the state. And that's not how this thing is built. That's not how it works. We are the sovereigns. That's why it says we find these things to be self-evident, right? This is the consent of the governed. We consent to this. We agree to it. These folks work for us. And so when I see people like Matt Rinaldi say that we're the wrong type of voters, mistake, big, big, big mistake. And I'm so thankful for Daniel Miller and his resolve. And folks, if you've got the resources to be able to support them in the work that they're doing, this is so critical. And I think about that. If you're someone who has a significant amount of resources, right, and you care about this stuff, it would be, I think, an honor of a lifetime to be a part of this and to play a significant role in making a difference like this, right? Not only helping the people of Texas have their voices heard, but advocating for what is right. Because here's the thing I want you to remind you about TEXIT. This isn't something that happens overnight, right? It's not like, oh yeah, it's on the ballot and the next thing you know, it's independent. No, this is a journey that we're on that really raises to the forefront the most important issues. But right now, there's so many people that are standing in the way in gatekeeping. And so I'm just glad that we have a roadmap. I'm glad that we have this. And I'm so glad that we've got folks in crypto and Texan token and all these things coming around, because folks, this is the first time that crypto has been tied to a political effort like this. And to think that we could have a future where the 8th largest economy in the world is independent. Texas is strong. This is not Kazakhstan, folks. This is Texas. Independent-minded people. This is not something that we can't handle. It's the folks that are out there that are just, in my opinion, career politicians. Right? They are just concerned about themselves. It's selfish ambition. They're not, in my opinion, concerned about the people. Folks, I would encourage you, if you're somebody who prays, I would ask you to pray for Daniel Miller and the TNM. I certainly am going to. I feel like this is extremely important because I've asked this question for the last 3 years. Where do good people go? Where do good people go? Things in this world are upside down, and folks, they're not going to get much better anytime soon. And the question is, who's going to lead in this future? Because here's the thing, I talk about this on Fridays with Steve Staggs every single Friday. What if you were running Texas? What if you were in charge of this, that, or the other? Something important, right? Would you lead and make decisions from your own selfish ambition? Or would you rule over things and reign over things in the nature and character of God who created it all? Because I feel like that's what public service really is to put aside our personal feelings and represent the people in a way that reflects the blessing and protection and the nature and the character of the Creator who gives us our rights. To me, folks, this is not just some political thing in a political season. To me, this is a destiny. This is something that matters. And you know what? I never thought in my entire life that we'd have an opportunity to be a part of something so significant for the future of our kids and our grandkids. And I think about this. I'm like, what is this going to look like if we do not stand up? Folks, thanks for joining the Pulse today. My name is Matt. This is Crypto Heartbeat. And folks, do not mess with Texas. Take care, everybody.